The Young Lions of Tarshish, Australia. Like all the young lion nations, Australia is a country where people want to live. It is one of the most desired countries to emigrate to, and like Canada, scores highly on all metrics for quality of life, freedom, prosperity, and so on. It is unique in the world in that it is the only country in the world that covers an entire continent. In fact, everything about Australia is different. It is the oldest, driest and flattest continent. The flora and fauna are unique, and it has incredibly diverse terrain from tropical jungles to snowy mountaintops. Its story as a young lion nation started with the arrival of James Cooke in the Endeavour in 1770. He charted the east coast of Australia and claimed it for Britain, calling the new territory New South Wales. Britain lost its colonies in North America in 1783, and in response to this, the British government decided to send a fleet of ships to New South Wales to establish a penal colony. This fleet is known as the First Fleet. On the 13th of May 1787, the fleet, under the command of Captain Arthur Phillips, with over 1,400 people, convicts, marines, sailors, civil officers and free settlers, left from Portsmouth, England, and took a journey of over 15,000 miles and over 250 days to eventually arrive in Botany Bay, New South Wales, where a penal colony would become the first British settlement in Australia. Aboard this first fleet was the Reverend Richard Johnson. He had been recommended as chaplain for the prison colony of New South Wales by the Society for the Propagation of the Gospel, an Anglican missionary organisation that still exists today. Johnson was known for his enthusiasm for preaching the gospel. John Newton, an Anglican cleric and the writer of Amazing Grace, and William Wilberforce, the famous abolitionist and evangelical Anglican, both persuaded the Prime Minister William Pitt to accept Richard Johnson's nomination. Johnson was an evangelical and brought with him over 4,000 pieces of literature, including Bibles, prayer books and hymn books. On a Sunday, the 3rd of February 1788, Johnson conducted the first Christian service on Australian soil. The text he preached on was Psalm 116, verses 12 to 13. What shall I render unto the Lord for all his benefits towards me? I will take the cup of salvation and call upon the name of the Lord. Part of Johnson's responsibility as chaplain was education, and to set up a school that provided universal education to all the children in the colony. The Australian church school movement was supported financially by various Christian societies in Britain and also by missionaries who came out to teach. Consequently, the Australian education system was rooted in the Christian church rather than in government legislation. From this promising start, the colony of Australia grew and grew fast. In 100 years, it had grown into a fully developed nation in its own right. Settlers came to it mainly from Europe and brought their various faiths with them. Different denominations became established all over the colony. On January 1st, 1901, 6 colonies that made up Australia were joined together to create the Commonwealth of Australia, a self-governing dominion in the British Empire. Baptists, Methodists, Anglicans, the Salvation Army and other Christian organisations established themselves in Australia. Today, most of them are in decline, but the Pentecostal church is still growing. As a young lion nation, Australia has maintained its links with Great Britain and has followed a similar constitutional path to that of Canada. In both World Wars, Australia immediately entered the conflict on the side of Britain, and its troops were known for their tenacity and courage. Also, Australia has had an interesting relationship with Israel. Australia and Israel share a close relationship with significant people-to-people links and broad commercial engagement. Australia established diplomatic relations with Israel in 1949. The Australian Embassy in Tel Aviv and the Israeli Embassy in Canberra were both opened in that year. Australian troops played a pivotal role in expelling the Ottoman Empire from Palestine in 1917. The charge of the Australian light horse at Beersheba in 1917 overran the Turkish trenches and secured victory for the British Empire's Egyptian Expeditionary Force. The Battle of Beersheba was a coming-of-age event for the nation of Australia and marked its entry onto the world stage. It also marked the genesis of Australia's special relationship with Israel. Many evangelicals at the time saw the Australian light horseman as fulfilling biblical prophecy. Without Beersheba, the British and her allies could not have liberated the Holy Land. Israel could not be reborn, Jerusalem could not be liberated, and prophecy could not be fulfilled. Australia is a nation founded and established by God and built upon the rock of Jesus Christ. It has problems just as any other nation, but its future is assured. Australia is often referred to as the lucky country because of its immense natural resources and lifestyle. However, I prefer to think of that first sermon preached by the Reverend Richard Johnson on God's benefits as being prophetic. Australia has been blessed with God's benefits, spiritual and natural. It's a country founded by common people, by outcasts and ordinary people seeking a better life. Out of that mix, a unique culture has been created which is friendly, easygoing and hard-working. The young lion nations are sheep nations rather than goat nations. Matthew chapter 25 verses 31 to 46. And therefore they have an eternal future. Australia is literally known for its sheep. It is the world's largest sheep exporter. Prophetically, there is something about Australian culture that appeals to people all over the world. It is a nation that has a prophetic mandate to reach out to people everywhere with the gospel. Thank you for listening. If you found this video interesting, you can find more information at prophecy-workshop.com.